At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk Picture Books. Perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back-to-school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Capel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capelprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Good morning. You are listening to Teachers Talk Radio, and this is the morning break with Liz and Kate. I don't know about anybody else, but the summer already feels like a distant memory. The full pace of the autumn term has completely hit. I don't know where I am at the moment. I'm all over the place. Hope everyone is keeping their heads above water. Had a positive start. How's the start of term been for you, Kate?
Okay, so the first day I was back in school wasn't brilliant because we started the inset day at 9, and I usually get up and get ready, and I'm in school by 8:15 or 8:30, so I missed the rush hour a little bit, and I got caught up in traffic, and I was the last person to arrive at the large Cornish school I teach at, and I scrambled in my little summer wedges like you do for inset day, still half in the summer. And it was dead silent, and I was thinking, God, all the cars are in the car park. Everyone else is here, and there's a really large staff cohort. So I was like, oh, okay. Went up to the door of the hall, and one of the doors was shut, and I thought I couldn't hear a pin drop, so I thought they're not in there. But I just thought I'll stick my head around the door. Stuck my head around the door. Heel clatters. People turn around. The entire staff cohort is sitting in there, listening to the head talk very quietly from the front of the stage. And I thought, oh my God, there's nowhere to sit. They've seen me. I've got to go in. I felt like a late student, a really naughty late student. And I'm pretty sure he was talking about, but it could have just been my frightened imagination, that he was talking about punctuality and being a good role model and, you know, showing the students how to...
That's paranoia. That's just paranoia.
Behaviour. And so I was just thinking, oh, what? They've seen me. I've got to go in. So I was looking for a seat. Nothing at the back, nothing in the middle. The only seat that was free was in the middle of the first two rows with senior leadership team. And I'm a tutor at the school, even though I'm 4 days a week. So I scuttled in with my little bag, sat down, and just as I'm sitting down, he says, "Good morning, Kate," in front of the entire staff, and calls me out by name. And I was like, "Good morning, Steve." So it was very embarrassing. A few people laugh. I just think no. But that was my first day back. But after that, it's been really good, I have to say.
I was going to say, it can only get better from that point.
Yeah, so, it's really good seeing the students again, and just settling back in again felt actually really lovely. I forget how much I enjoy it until the end of a day where you've been with students, and then you go home and you think, oh, that was a good day. You know, it was good.
It is. So how about you? Everybody. Do you know what? You would think after 20 years, I would be used to it, but there's just, I forget the intensity of it every single time. I think it's a trauma block or something like that, but you come back in and it's seating plans, AAN information, reading KCSE, and all the other new policy updates, and signing all the declarations to do with that. And it's suddenly your emails are, everyone's trying to inform you of everything that you needed to know over the last 6 weeks, but they're catching you up on it now. And it's learning new names and getting back into the swing of planning. And it's boom, 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 boom.
You just reminded me as well. I haven't finished my prevent training. I've got to finish that.
Yeah, getting your prevent and your certificate. Yeah, absolutely.
Going through all those things, because I'm still, although I'm working as a tutor, I'm still, teaching 5 lessons a day to small groups of college students and one-to-ones. And we have to do everything everybody else is doing. And there's a lot. You've got to read every year. You've got to read through, all the new updates to the policies, haven't you? You've got to go and get your diary all sorted out. And like I said, and I don't even have the big classes you do. So it's mental. It's still mental.
It is. It's really, really intense, and it's such a whirlwind. But that being said, like seeing everybody, seeing your colleague, going hi, giving everyone a hug, you know, sort of remembering that camaraderie, and it's really nice. And we've had some change at my school. We've got a new head and second of department, and it's exciting to have these new things. So that's it's tiring but positive, I think, and we'll get used to it. If the adrenaline kicks in, don't you, and you just get on with it.
I like the expression, if you want something done, ask a busy person, because I find that now I'm up and I'm doing the routine, I'm actually getting a lot done. And I did my back to school blues, we did the back to school blues show where we talked about ways to keep ourselves positive. And my friend Michelle and I went sea swimming after work the other day. It was actually quite late, but the sea, I'm in Cornwall, and the sea was, it felt cold on the beach, but when we actually got in the sea, it was still lovely. And it just made the evening so much longer to do that before the days get longer. So I totally recommend, if you can get in a pool or a river, lake, sea, if anything like that.
A bath, if that's the closest thing you have.
Yeah, I had a bubble bath last night, or a brilliant bubble bath where you can put some nice colours and relaxing, whatever your body of water may be.
Whatever helps. That's what they say with children. They say that with children. They say if they're, starting to get a little bit edgy, and you can see their mood is really shifting, they say take them outside or put them in water. They're the two things that you should do with them to try and shift it's obviously a sensory thing to switch their mood. So clearly it works for adults as well. Clearly it's in water or outside, or both, as sea swimming does.
I got into the habit of watching things on my laptop in the bath, and now I'm finding it's much easier to relax if you put off the lights, stick on a candle, listen to the music. It makes such a big difference. So if you're constantly listening to programs, true crime, whatever you do,
overstimulation,
switch off in the bath.
Don't drop your laptop in the bath. Before we get on to our topic, shall we have a word from our sponsors?
Right, yes. Okay, here we go. So, so this show is brought to you in partnership with Hatchet Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit www.hatchetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles. If you're looking for another great education podcast, check out Chalk and Talk with Anna Stocky. Anna is a passionate advocate for evidence-based math education for students of all ages. On her podcast, she talks about everything from effective teaching methods and how-to guides for teaching math facts to tips for evaluating research shows claims. She brings on top-notch guests, educators, researchers, and policymakers, and discusses issues that directly impact teachers and students. Chalk and Talk is for anyone interested in education. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. Now, AQA know teachers are the real experts in the classroom. That's why they work closely with teachers like you, combining your insight with their assessment expertise to create resources, tools, training and guidance that genuinely make a difference. They're the UK's most chosen assessment organisation, so chances are you already know their work. And as we head into a new school year, AQA are focused on helping teachers feel supported and ready. If you want to find out more about how they're working with teachers like you, just head to their website or search AQA, We Work with Experts.
Okay, thank you so much. So for anyone who's new to our show, Kate and I have known each other for a really long time. We worked together as English teachers in Surrey probably 12 or more years ago, I think.
More years ago, more than that.
Probably more.
I'm sorry to tell you, but yeah, so I've been 12 years.
Oh, but as a result, obviously, we are both very passionate about literature and the teaching of it, which is kind of behind the topic that we're going to talk about today. What's your favourite thing about literature, Kate?
Right, what I love about teaching literature is helping students to understand how the issues that they face are often found in are always usually found in timeless works of art. So, for example, I had a tutee recently, and we were looking at Jamaica Inn. It was a text on an AQA exam paper. And we ended up reading the entire book. She finished it over the summer holidays. She actually asked if she could take it home because she really related to the heroine Mary and the way she was feeling. This child was new in Cornwall. She was feeling a little bit uncertain about it, and the place names were reassuring to her because, you know, Truro's mentioned. And just to think that a fictional character decades ago was experiencing some of the same feelings as she was feeling about moving, because Mary moves to a new place, she moves to Jamaica Inn, and she has to overcome danger and battles, and she has a love interest. She has to learn about that. And I think, so teaching literature, I think, is fascinating because you can really see how students think, I feel like this. And that was decades ago, you know, that was another century, and the human experience is still so relatable, and also just the clothes, the way people spoke, and it just brings history to life, and it teaches us so much, and that's what I love about. One of the things I love about teaching literature. How about you?
It's very similar, actually. I think it's the discussions that you have as a result of the content that you're talking about. The fact that, you know, you can be studying a play that was written 400 years ago, but still 400 years ago there were these societal issues and making it relevant to the modern day and saying, you know, that wasn't just happening then. Look at this, you know. I love teaching books like Animal Farm and things like that. You know, I feel like that's become all the more relevant, you know, in recent years, and saying, you know, these are problems that have existed for such a long time, and how have we not overcome them? Why are we still here? And broadening young people's minds. I think that's what literature does. That's the whole point, isn't it? It's when you read a book, you don't want to read a book necessarily about exactly what you're doing in your everyday life. You want to read about and learn new things, and it offers young people the opportunity to have experiences outside, as well as it be relatable.
Learn about, isn't it? You're teaching them how to time travel in their minds. You can go
back.
That's
so true. That's what it's like. It is like time travel. It's like, you know, exploring the world. But I'm going to come back to that concept if the literature allows you to.
It's a safe way to explore. And I think the reason this student took the book home over the holidays is it's escapism for them as well, you know, and us. So she can escape to another century. She can escape into Mary's world, and anything difficult that she was dealing with, she could explore it through this character, as well as learn about smugglers and Cornish history, and really get some ownership of where she is now. And because she was a little bit displaced. And I think that that's what's so magical, but also teaching about the fights in Romeo and Juliet, the fact they had rapiers. And what it was actually like back then with all these young men in medieval times carrying around rapiers through learning about it through fiction is fantastic.
I really love teaching Shakespeare to young people because it is my favourite thing in English to teach, actually, because what I love is transforming a young person's viewpoint about Shakespeare, where they say they hate it,
Yeah.
and then getting into the story and them loving it, and the discussions. I did Romeo and Juliet with my year 8s in the summer term, and they were so invested in where it was going, what was happening. And it was and then we did an assessment at the end of it, and it was an oral assessment, and it was a trial, and they all were responsible for different characters and arguing, trying to defend their characters about who, like, they were blaming others, who's to blame for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet, and defending themselves. And the cases that they put together just showed how deeply they understood it, and it was marvelous. It was such a joy.
May I just ask who was to blame?
So I thought going into it they were going to decide that Friar Lawrence.
Yeah, that seems to be the classic. Yeah.
But what the court case decided was that Juliet was to blame, which I thought was really, really interesting.
Why was that?
Yeah.
What was? I know we need to get onto male, pale, and etc. But I just want to know.
Yeah, well, because they decided that she was too, and I tried to argue. I was like, she's very young and easily influenced by everything that was around her. But they were like, yeah, but she was just so impetuous. She made so many decisions. She had people around her advising her, and she wasn't listening. She was just acting instinctively all the time. And I was like, but she's 13. Isn't that what you guys do? And they were like, no, she just didn't think it through. Which I thought was really entertaining.
How come it was Juliet's? Romeo was exactly the same. Maybe they thought because Juliet wears the pants in that play, so maybe it was her fault because she could have missed. She wasn't guiding Romeo right. She pushed him into it, maybe. But I love Juliet's character. I think she's this bold, independent woman who won't, who knows what she wants and won't be walked over. And I mean, you could blame the messenger, I guess, as well. No one was it. Who blames the messenger?
Well, Friar John.
He doesn't get the letter to the. He doesn't get the letter.
Poor old Friar John. He didn't know how important it was. Because nobody told him. Let's segue into our topic. So basically, what I've noticed over the years is that what we teach is quite repetitive. We do a lot of the same things. I've taught Macbeth, I don't know how many times over the last few years. I haven't taught another Shakespeare play for a very, very long time. I think easily 10 years since I've taught another Shakespeare play. I am an examiner, and the proportion of the papers that I marked, what I saw predominantly was Macbeth and A Christmas Carol. I saw next it was Jekyll and Hyde and Romeo and Juliet, and then a smattering of like Pride and Prejudices, and that was pretty much it. We had a couple of Jane Eyres.
We used to teach Frankenstein, didn't we? What happened to that? I loved.
Yeah, I love Frankenstein. I absolutely love it.
Girls get great results at Rodbridge when we did Frankenstein as well. I was surprised how good the results were when with the Frankenstein text. So I was a bit like, where's it gone? I know it's long, but they liked it, and it's so relevant. Mary Shelley's, suggesting that we might need to be careful with science in terms of we might need to be careful with AI, technology. We might need to just sort of, it's like Jurassic Park, and now they're selling it. We need
how
to
we
think
treat
about
people.
what we do. Yeah.
How we treat people who we perceive as different to us, and
yes.
Without actually understanding what their story is or where they've come from, or just villainizing somebody. I mean, how relevant is that?
So
in the modern day?
I actually think Frankenstein is the most relevant text we could probably teach.
Yeah, I agree.
About what's on the news, but it's gone. Maybe because it's got a female writer.
But that's leading us into our topic, which is male, pale, and stale. Like ultimately, what we do in the English curriculum, we joke that male, pale, and stale is the in joke amongst English teachers. That's what the literature curriculum is. Because predominantly that is what we teach. We teach old, white, dead, middle-class men who wrote things. And yes, I know a lot of the literary canon is those writers, but we live in such a diverse society. We have so many writers of colour who are writing incredibly beautiful novels for our young people to benefit from. and we're not teaching them.
Not
At
GCSE
GCSE
level. Not at GCSE. We're not, are we? I mean, a little bit at A level, and sometimes, you know, they'll do some Marjorie Blackman and things like that. I mean, you could argue that, you know, literature are books that, you know, have stood the test of time, but I think these books are beginning to stand the test of time as well. And it's almost like, okay, they're good for year 8, but we won't teach them at GCSE because that's always male parents' tale. I think there's room for Shakespeare, and there's certainly room for Dickens. I love Dickens, but there's definitely room for Charlotte Bronte and Margaret Atwood and Grace Nichols, and well, mind you, the poetry's better, isn't it? I think.
Well, this is the thing. That's what's really interesting about the curriculum. So I did, when kind of researching for the show and looking up statistics and background, I went and looked at exam boards, and I made a little table of basically the diversity or lack of diversity, as the case may be, of the writers that are listed on the curriculum. And when it comes to novels, it is predominantly white men. The novels are, and the plays. But when you get to the poetry, there is a lot more diversity. However, that was helped significantly by the fact that AQA have added a Worlds and Lives. I think they're
I've been teaching some of that, and I mean, for me, I love John Agard. I know you love John Agard as well, but you know, we've had that collection of poems for a long time in the GCSE spec, and it's, you know, he was sort of shouting then, we need to learn about, you know, other voices, and we need to know about successful historical African and Caribbean figures and leaders, and people like Nanny de Maroon, who you know, wanted to pass on the culture, and you know, and instead it's all been silenced, and it's still being silenced. And I think we should stop making it a joke and start getting angry about this. We need more.
Yeah, absolutely. And John Agard, I love John Agard, and John Agard, I was saying to Kate before the show started, I had a massive epiphany courtesy of John Agard, on a little kind of mini documentary of him talking about his poetry, and particularly the poem Checking Out My History, where he said history did not begin until the white man entered. And I was in my 30s when I heard him say, and I was like, oh my God, how is it I've got to this age and I've not realised that? That's so accurate as a reflection of how we teach things, and we teach it through a very narrow lens.
History written by the victors, and English GCSE curriculum is also written by the you know, the male parents. And
it's but the thing is, what's really odd about it is that I do think that the exam boards are trying to correct it. It sometimes feels a little bit like a token gesture, but there is an attempt to do it. The problem is, and it comes back to all the same things in education, teachers don't have time
for the
to change everything. You know, you're just like, do you know what, I've got 1,000,001 things to do. Like just how it started the show, you know, at the beginning of the year, you've got all of these administrative things to do which are taking up lots and lots of time. And actually the idea of having to teach a new text that you don't really know, that the exam board have put on for more diversity, we don't have time. There often are not a huge amount of resources that exist related to these texts either. And as teachers, you kind of, especially when you're getting started, you kind of depend on those supportive resources just to get your head in the game and just be like, right, okay, these are the things that I'm going to concentrate on. But they often don't exist because there isn't a market for them, because nobody's studying it. So it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. Meanwhile, those texts are kind of sitting there neglected while we carry on teaching the same old things. And I think we want to, I think the intention is there. But we're just not doing it particularly well or particularly effectively.
Jamaica Inn isn't very long to teach. The students love it. You can read it really fast. It's by a female writer, okay. A white female writer, but you know, a female writer at least, you know, give it a bit, you know, break it up a little bit from Jekyll and Hyde or whatever. And you know, I live in Cornwall, and I think that the students would love to recognise they have a lot of Cornish place names there, and you learn about the tours and the history of the place, and you know, the fictional Smugglers Inn you can still visit, and you've got all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, but the only time I've seen it was an extract, well done AQA for using it, but an extract in an AQA paper where you're sort of comparing, you know, and but you didn't read the whole book with the students. So that's why I just took the opportunity as a tutor to read that with the student. And you know, I was thinking, this is a fantastic text. Why aren't they using this one? You know,
I don't think of like the main exam boards. I don't think Jamaica Inn appears on any of the shortlists of the texts that you study. So it's probably not probably not an option.
No, it's only an extract. Yeah,
but I think time constraints in the curriculum are a massive issue. You know, books like Jekyll and Hyde and A Christmas Carol are chosen because they're 100 pages long and you can get through them in a very restricted curriculum time.
What about your higher ability students though? Because I think when we taught Frankenstein, I don't remember time being a problem. You know what I mean?
But I think certainly since that, and I'm so aware, I caught myself doing it this week, like talking to Key Stage 4 and talking about the new GCSE. It's not a new GCSE. We've been teaching it since 2015, so it's 10 years old now. But still think of it as new. And that everything seemed to shift with that, because you've got 100% exam as well, because you don't have controlled assessment, because you don't, I just feel like there was a little bit more time to play with when you were doing coursework and controlled assessment. Whereas now it's just, they've got 4 exams to prepare for, 100% content, and you've got not only to just teach the content in the first place, but you've got to keep revisiting things as well. And so you do need to get through things relatively quickly. Perhaps not quite as quickly as we do. And there are schools that are doing it. They wouldn't put it on the curriculum if they didn't think it was possible. But I would love to teach Frankenstein. I just think there's so much depth, like for the reasons that we were talking about earlier, there's so much that we can talk about in terms of our values as people and, you know, understanding society from that. To give the, you know, okay, it's not a great amount of diversity.
Creating robots, it's a bit like the monster. Like, once you've created it, what if it turns against you?
Exactly. What can you do about it? So yeah, I think time constraints, budget constraints as well. Like, you know, where budgets are really pulling in tight. You know, you've got English departments being told that they can't buy books. No money to buy books this year.
What about writers like Susan Hill? You know, that's, again, Women in Black's not long. You can take students to see that as a play as well.
Yeah, you can. It's not on all curriculums, Women in Black. But yeah, we used to do that when you and I taught together. That was something that was on the curriculum.
I was thinking the female voices seem to have disappeared, and we definitely need more diverse writers in every sense, really.
Yeah, well, so again, in kind of researching for this show and looking at diversity, I came across the study Lit in Colour. It's from 2021, but it was really eye-opening for me, as because, you know, like, colloquially you have conversations with your colleagues and you understand there's not much in the way of diversity in the curriculum. You see that. Aside from, as we said earlier, A-level, the poetry I do feel is an exception, but predominantly the curriculum is too narrow, really, and doesn't give us enough option. And Lit in Colour, actually, the survey that they did was very, very clear in terms of the results. I've got some statistics. Let me just find them, which I just found absolutely shocking. So in terms of when this study was done in 2021, so these might slightly be out of date, but no matter what, it's still representative.
Shocking in itself. Like, when I was doing a bit of research as well, I was just thinking, it was talking about male. I googled male, pale and stale, you know, just sort of first off, just like you do. Other search engines apply, like the eco one. But anyway, and all these articles popped up, but they were from like 2022, and I'm just thinking, you know, and then you find ones that are further back and you're thinking, well, where are this year's? It's almost like people are giving up and commenting on it, because people just keep commenting on it and nothing changes. Didn't you say your dad, we'll get back to the stats, but didn't you say your dad studied Macbeth and your mum and dad, or was that Rachel?
Yeah, the other day my mum and dad were reciting the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow speech.
Yeah, and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow we'll still be teaching the same thing.
Yeah,
until...
if something doesn't desperately change.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so back to the stats. Yeah.
Right, so the Lit and Colour stats. So what it said, so 34.4% of students in the country are students of colour. Okay, a third, just over a third of students. 0.7%, not even 1.7, 0.7% of students study a book by a writer of colour. That is not representative of the demographic of the classroom.
No.
That's not showing. And worse than that, 0.1% of students study a book by a female writer of colour.
Oh, God, yeah.
At GCSE. That's just, it's shameful.
It's so bad.
That we have, and do you know what? I just feel hyper aware of the fact that here are you and I, sat here as two white women, discussing this as well. Okay, yeah, you know, the gender element of it, but that was another thing that came up in the study. Actually, it was that English teachers are predominantly white and white females. That's the makeup of it. It was something like
male writers.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But I'm like, well, where does that start? Does that start? Are English teachers predominantly female because we're not seeing much else in the curriculum, and so therefore people don't feel represented, they don't feel invested in the literature, that people don't want to teach it because
surely it would be the other way around. There'd be more men doing it. Like, you know, I was talking about Dead Poets Society, wasn't I? I love Dead Poets Society, but it's very much, because it's an all-boys school, it's very much like men learn to be men from these dead men. And it's brilliant. There's amazing values, cry every time. But and it's all about finding your own unique voice. But you know, they do teach literature, obviously, at a lot of all boys schools, but you don't see. So I think maybe those teachers go on to teach at all boys schools is the only way I can think of. Where do they go? The boys that love literature at all boys schools, they go on and teach it at all boys schools. They don't go into the mainstream schools. What's going on?
I've got no idea. You know, I don't know how much uptake there is. I'd be interested to see at colleges, you know, what the uptake is for boys doing English at A level. I would imagine it's quite small potentially. I think, again, kind of our gender biases in society kind of pigeonhole people. You know, still in 2025, we've made some strides, but they're not big enough, really, in terms of that.
You know, people who are sort of becoming one-trick ponies, like medical students, not studying literature, just doing all the sciences.
Well, yeah, so we were talking to Rachel, weren't we, about this as well, and Rachel said that, you know, there's a real push now from kind of the red brick universities and you know, those who are well reputed, that they want students, medical students, STEM subject students, not to just be 4 A levels in sciences and maths. They want them to be more well-rounded, and they want to see, you know, something humanities based in there as well, to show that they're well-rounded individuals.
And they can develop empathy for their patients, perhaps, as well. What happens to the bedside manner if you don't learn about human emotion?
But that's it, isn't it? That's a key thing about literature. Literature is about empathy, isn't it? That's one of the reasons that we teach it. It's about, as you were saying earlier, about human experience. And so therefore we need to be looking at all humans' experience. And we're not talking about 150 years ago. We're not talking about a repressed society where people can't use their voices now. We are talking about a society in 2025 where anyone is entitled. Don't get me wrong, there are barriers. There are very many barriers still in place in society, and it's harder, particularly for people of colour, to get the recognition in the same way. However, the voices are there. We're just not capitalising on them. And I spoke to a colleague about it, and she said the literature curriculum's become a little bit like Eva Smith in an Inspector Calls, in that everyone's doing the talking for her. We don't hear her voice. Everyone's telling her story. themselves and their own version of her story. And still in literature, I feel a little bit like we're doing that. We're telling
Don't
other
get me
people.
started on, is it Enid who's the servant who comes in and goes out? Edna, Enid?
Close.
Edna or Enid? Yeah, her. She's forgotten about as well, isn't she? The silence voice.
But that's the point, isn't it? It's the like lower classes and the small voices. But we are not giving enough of a platform, and we need to teach our students empathy. We need to get them to understand what it is like. And another thing that the Lit in Colour study talked about was that of the texts that tend to be picked by writers of colour, so many of them are picked about oppression and things like that. Like that's the only experience.
Yeah.
And it should be more reflective. Students should feel more represented.
By people who've done amazing things, whether it's in science or even just creating a brilliant book, anything. It's like, as John Agard was saying, it's about finding those strong characters that have been completely forgotten about. But I mean, I'm not, obviously a lot of strong characters had to escape slavery in the past and things like that, but we've moved on now, and we need to also have more recent experiences in there, I think, as well, and recent achievements from a diverse amount of people, I believe.
I just think we're missing a trick somewhere. The thing that worries me about it is that I don't know how we change it.
Yeah.
Because another thing that my colleague that I was talking to said the problem is everything in school is results driven. And so why are teachers going to take a risk teaching something that they've not taught before, that isn't well resourced, when actually they know they can get results with the books that they've taught again and again and again? So then we're stuck in this cycle where we're not going to get past it. So it almost feels like, are we waiting for a massive overhaul of the education system before we do anything about this? That seems a bit bonkers.
I think maybe, to quote Dead Poets Society, it's about individuals can make change. One voice can, or two voices, or three voices. We can make a change. And I think there's this, like you said, it's about fear. It's schools are businesses, and they've got to crank out these results, and we've got to think about the student's future. But for a student to have a good future, they need to understand how it feels to walk around in other people's shoes, and not just people like the majority in their classroom, or they need to sort of understand what it feels like to be a student in a different culture, a different country as well, or even just to learn about their own culture in a different way, to get a different perspective.
That wasn't helped by the reforms that were brought in by Michael Gove, which led to this new GCSE, where the decision was made to remove any literature from the curriculum that wasn't written in the British Isles, which it blows my mind.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yes, I know it's English literature, but that doesn't mean that it has to be only British writers. That's completely, it's not inclusive at all. And think of the beautiful novels that have been written outside of the British Isles. I mean, I know, quite harrowing, but some of my favourite novels I've ever read, because they changed me. I learned so much from them, and it opened up my eyes to what was going on. The Khaled Hosseini novels, The Kite Runner, A Thousand Splendid Suns. Honestly, they changed me. Sometimes you read a book that changes you, and those books changed me, because suddenly I understood. And there was no way really for me to understand the emotion. The news doesn't give you the emotion. The news gives you the trauma, but it doesn't give you the human story, whereas literature can give you the human story. And we're denying our young people that opportunity. And I think there were some quotes from students in the study as well. Let me see if I can find the one that really stuck out to me, whereas it was a student themselves saying they want to study it. They don't want to. Oh, so here it goes. It says, I think it helps people understand societies and themselves better. The questions of identity it raises are of extreme importance. Studying others is key to studying yourselves, and literature is all about the representation of things. Young people get it. They understand the importance of learning about things beyond themselves. They want to learn about things beyond themselves. So why are we not doing that? Why are we not taking more action? And it comes back to all the same problems: the data results driven nature that education has become, the fact that results and league tables appear to be the be all and end all.
At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk Picture Books. Perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back-to-school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Capel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capelprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
Of education.
And I hate the fact that being to be seen as good at English now, you've got to write fast. So you've got 10 minutes, you've got 8 marks, and I respect the teachers. The results that the English department, the school I'm at, got this year were fantastic, and they were very much teaching in a very at a high pace. Marks for this question, marks for that question, and it works, and the students get great results. But my worry is that it's almost like who can write the fastest in this amount of time to this formula. We've still got the same point, quote, infer, point, quote, explain, link. And I think that students can be creative in that sense, and they can write fantastic persuasive articles, and they can write excellent bits of creative writing, but it's becoming so prescriptive, and there's a little bit of me that's worrying that we're rushing them through this machine, and actually we need to enjoy life, but not choke on the bones. Another Dead Poet Society literary quote. You need to squeeze the marrow out of life, but sorry if I'm murdering this, but don't choke on the bones. I feel like we're in danger of choking on the bones, Liz, by going too fast and not dwelling in the beauty of literature and the experience of a small boy in The Kite Runner or whatever it is. I know I'm being idealistic. And it is important that we get those results in the school for the children. But I think we need to have a little bit more time to really develop that empathy and the love of literature for everybody of all different, so it's difficult to say really, because like you said, I was interested in what you said about, you mentioned before about the name Other Cultures for the poetry anthology.
Oh yeah, I absolutely loathe that. I've always loathed it. I just find that as a term absolutely abhorrent, because immediately what you're doing with the word other is you're segregating, you're highlighting that these people are different to us, is what you're saying, and it creates a distance, I think.
Other.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not right. Why is it not just poetry? Why are we not just studying poetry? We're studying an anthology of, and to be fair, they did get rid of that. They don't do that anymore, which is good. But I always felt really deeply uncomfortable with it as a term. I don't like it, much like I don't like the word tolerance. I don't like it when we talk about tolerance. Tolerance means that you're putting up with. Acceptance is better. It's, you know, we all live in the same world. We all need to be kind to each other. But are we lessening that ability to be kind to each other because we're not understanding other people's experiences? And literature allows us to do that. We just, you know, it's just, again, there was another quote from Bernardine Evaristo. They are currently being denied access to the glorious, outstanding and often groundbreaking narratives coming out of Britain's Black and Asian communities. Literature is the curator of our imaginations and schools are the caretakers of our young people's education. I remember, I don't think you hear it very much anymore, but as schools, as teachers, as educators, we're supposed to be responsible for students' lifelong learning. It shouldn't be about the formulas to pass exams. It shouldn't be about just this next hurdle. We shouldn't just be teaching them things just to get through that next step.
Hurdle, you hear a lot.
Yes.
We've just got to get you through this fence. It's like you're just rushing through their lives too fast.
Exactly. And what are we doing? We're not teaching them. We're supposed to be teaching them skills that they take through their entire life. But we're not doing that because we're being measured against these results. And so therefore, naturally, all teachers do it. I do it. I'm not being a hypocrite. I'm not saying, oh, you shouldn't do that when I do it myself. We all do it. We all do. We're all finding ways to play the system and teach students the way to get the best results in the exams. I say things like that all the time. Examiners want to see this, not love this about this, but obviously I try to do that as well as much as possible.
The examiners do want to see creativity, humour, wit and everything like that, but we're still teaching students to write a very prescriptive imagine this, start the anecdote, or do you see what I mean? And I know they've said in the feedback, you know, we prefer it when students come up with their own ideas and people saying, but in that amount of time, not everyone can. We have to have that segue into the anecdote or whatever. But we just need a little bit of time to help them to find their own voices, I think, not just learn to sound like the next student that's done well. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, people use the term exam factory. That's exactly what it feels like quite a lot of the time. And what's wrong with reading for pleasure? What's wrong with reading a book just to talk about that book and to appreciate character development and stories and experiences and morals? And there is so much to be learned from that process.
If you have a class and it's divided by, I don't know, imaginary issues that people have with other people's race or background or ancestry or whatever, if you can teach them to have respect for, everybody's ancestors in different ways, everybody's history, everybody's origin. So I remember being incredibly proud. My dad's from Edinburgh when I found out about all the fantastic Scottish writers, because, I hadn't heard a lot about it when I was very young. And then I gradually learned more, and I did violence as art in Scottish literature at university during my master's. And the more I learned about it, the more fascinated I was with that side of my family. And I think, like as John Agard saying, checking out my history, people want to take pride in their history, and we need children to respect other people's perspective, other people's history, other people's ancestry, and how it's all relevant and it's all part of our world, and we can't do that if it just stays in this merry-go-round of male, pale, stale and exam results. We need to break free.
I think as well, what's really interesting is that there is the possibility, because I don't think the argument is we need to wipe the literary canon that exists away.
No, not at all.
Because I think it's possible to explore all of these things alongside. Like, they don't have to be separate things. You don't have to have the literary canon and diverse writers. You can have everything together. You can teach issues through the literary canon. I know there's a lot of controversy about Shakespeare. Lots of people say, oh, Shakespeare needs to come off the curriculum. He shouldn't be a compulsory writer. Personally, I don't agree with that. I think Shakespeare, for his time, was light years ahead of what his society was like. He wrote amazingly strong female characters. Look at Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing, Portia in The Merchant of Venice, even Lady Macbeth to a certain extent. You know, she's the one who takes charge, and he wrote these incredibly strong female characters in a society that was deeply patriarchal. He wrote beautiful plays like Othello and Merchant of Venice discussing racial prejudices in a society that was deeply entrenched in its racial prejudices, like absolutely exclusionary in terms of like where people were allowed to live and who was allowed to talk to each other and whether they were even allowed in the country, like that sort of. But he was writing from an, you know, the nuance of Merchant of Venice about actually, depending on how it's presented, without changing the language, Shylock can be presented as a villain or a victim. Like the nuance of that is incredibly clever, that he's done that so as not to alienate audiences of the time, but also anyone who was forward thinking, and who, you know, was able to feel that sympathy, empathy for the character. It's there. The opportunity to feel that is there. And so we can use the existing literary canon to explore those ideas and then talk about society at the time. How is that similar to or different from our current society? You know,
so what would you pair that with, though? I mean, that's the difficulty, isn't it? It's thinking, okay, so we want to keep these texts, they're fantastic, but we also need more diversity. We also need students to have a deeper understanding of the world at large, as well as, you know, the different experiences of students within our own classrooms. So how, I mean, this is the big question. How do we do that?
That's exactly it. That is the big question, isn't it? It's the how is the issue. I think the intention is there. I think exam boards are trying to redress the balance. Like, I think it's primarily it's coming through the poetry. That's where it's being redressed, is the imbalance.
Which is great, but it's a start. But we need to think about.
We need novels. We need you know, things that are exploring whole stories, you know, settings and things that you can't get in poetry. Poetry, you can get ideas, morals, things like that, but in novels you get whole backgrounds, settings, different countries, different cultures. You can immerse yourself in title, which you can't do with a poem. It's a discussion point, but in a novel you immerse yourself, don't you, in that environment.
What about short stories, like a proper library, things like that, where you can sort of insert little stories in? Again, I'm just thinking, I know it's time, but I'm just thinking, rather than, I know it's important we have to have full text, but I think we could do a lot with short stories as well.
Yeah, we absolutely could. And I think actually that's probably a way that the GCSE curriculum could shift a little. Is, you know, we probably do have time to look at some short stories. We can link it in with the language paper skills, and we can, you know, all of the analytical skills are across all of the papers anyway, aren't they? Teaching them to analyse. You can analyse anything. So there definitely is more space for it there. But I do think we need novels.
Wouldn't it be great if anyone's listening that has some ideas about what, but needs a voice, that they could, is there a way they can email us or get in touch?
I think, yeah, you can via all the social media for Teachers Talk Radio, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter.
Some more diverse novels, plays, that we could talk about, that we could read perhaps and talk about together.
I'd be really interested as well, because I don't know an awful lot about the drama curriculum. So if we have any drama colleagues who are listening, who could let us know about, is the drama curriculum more diverse? You know, I know some of the things that I've heard talked about in the drama curriculum, you know, sounds very white male as well. So, but I might be wrong, because I'm not well enough informed about that.
I shouldn't laugh, because it's not funny, but it's just, you just think, I was hoping you'd say it's more diverse, but when you said it's not, I just thought,
I don't know. From what I understand.
I was like, no. I was thinking maybe they had a better shot.
It's breaking that cycle, and I do, like I said earlier, my fear is that until there's an overhaul, I don't know, or until
you don't want the wrong kind of overhaul where someone comes in and takes away all the good stuff and doesn't replace it with good stuff.
I think like the whole of the education system just needs to catch up with the modern day. We've got, in an increasingly digital world, we've got kids sitting for 3 hours handwriting.
Yeah, but that's
just things like that. It's just bonkers.
I know, but they've been doing studies, haven't they, about perhaps it might. I was listening to God, I was listening to Radio 4 the other day, Liz.
That's a bad sign, Kate.
I'm doing some gardening and knitting a hat. And I was listening to two women discussing, actually it might not have been Radio 4, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I was listening to people discussing, oh gosh, what were we just talking about? There's me losing the thread of what I'm saying. Homework and writing. There we go. Thank God, I just remembered what I was talking about. And so basically they were saying that children are spending way too much time on screens. It's not good for their eyes. It's not good in general. And parents there's a campaign for parents to have the option whether to say no, they don't want their children having homework online anymore. So what do you think about that? If you had an option for Oliver not to have homework on a computer, would you take it?
It's really difficult because he's so early on in his school experience. So
they're talking about primary school children.
Our homework predominantly at this stage is to read books and to practice his phonic sounds and his tricky words and simple maths problems and things like that. So I'm not really fully.
So it's not on screen time anyway. So maybe they're
not at the moment, but he's so little. And but obviously we've got the smartphone free childhood movement as well. So I think things will shift.
Maybe in terms of secondary schools also, not all children have computers at home. And or miss, my computer's broken, my printer's broken, my phone's broken, so and we recently had issues with technology at the school I'm at, and everything went back to paper-based. Luckily I had a lot of paper resources. Luckily I still love books. Luckily I don't use a Kindle, that sort of stuff, because I had everything I needed. I was like, well, I've got all the paper resources still. But it's it's a thought, isn't it? It's like, how much screen time do we give them? And that's a whole other topic, isn't it? But
there was just something else from there that I highlighted, which again I said earlier about us being two white women talking about this, and in a way that kind of feels almost hypocritical. I don't feel like I'm the right voice for this, but that's how a lot of teachers feel about talking about these issues in class as well. So there was another quote in the study that said, "The palpable tension in the class suggested to me that we were not used to talking about race in this personal and confrontational manner, but if we couldn't address and unpick and learn about what made all these issues so intensely uncomfortable to begin with, how could we learn at all?" Mm-hmm. And it's so true. I mean, taught lesser now are books like Of Mice and Men. Obviously it has the very offensive N-word in it. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to
fantastic book.
It's an incredible book. And again, Steinbeck was writing about societal and societal prejudices. The reason that he used that word is not because he was a racist himself. It's because he wasn't using it in a racist way. He was highlighting how racist society was at that time, and we should feel uncomfortable when we hear that word. Absolutely should.
And it's about ageist people, sexist people. Do you know what I mean? That you've got Candy and the dog that are about to get shot.
Absolutely. Well, it's a book about how people who are
minorities.
Minorities in society are treated by people, which actually fundamentally comes down to what we're talking about, isn't it? And if we don't talk about these things, if we don't explore these things, where are they going to explore this? PSHE maybe, history maybe, but even history I'm pretty sure the history curriculum shifted to only talking about British history when the curriculum changed. How can we let history? We are not isolated in the way. We might be an island, but we're not isolated. Everything that happens is.
So couldn't they have replaced Of Mice and Men with a book that's written by a writer of colour, for example? But did they?
Well, no, Of Mice and Men just came out entirely.
Yeah, it wasn't replaced by anything.
because it's American literature, it just came out entirely. But we are talking about that at the moment. We're talking about in year 9 bringing in a book of diversity. If you can't do it at GCSE, try and do it at Key Stage 3 and give them those experiences earlier.
yeah, why not a GCSE? I know it's time.
Yeah. It's, do you know what, I've filled an hour, and I honestly, all the research that I did, I've kind of actually barely touched the surface of all the things.
We'll have to do another one on this with Rachel then.
Yeah, I found out some things about the primary curriculum as well, which was really interesting. But we're running out of time. We've only got about 3 minutes left.
Maybe we can get some more suggestions from other teachers on other texts that they could, suggest, other books to reflect.
It'd be nice to hear from schools that have bitten the bullet and have switched it out and gone for a different text and just braved it. How has that worked out? Has it affected results? Again, contact us in all the normal ways: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We would absolutely love to know.
And anyone from an exam board that wants to get involved as well and say what they have been doing or haven't been doing to change.
How are they trying to address it would be really, really useful.
We can have another show on this with Rachel.
We could in the future, definitely. Well, we also wanted to talk about banned books, didn't we? But I feel like that's a whole other show, so we could tie it in with that. Shall we have a word from our sponsors before we close, Kate?
Absolutely. Here we go. So this show is brought to you in partnership with Hatchet Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit www.hatchetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles. AQA know teachers are the real experts in the classroom. That's why they work closely with teachers like you, combining your insight with their assessment expertise to create resources, tools, training and guidance that genuinely make a difference. They're the UK's most chosen assessment organisation, so chances are you already know their work. And as we head into a new school year, AQA are focused on helping teachers feel supported and ready. If you want to find out more about how they're working with teachers like you, just head to their website or search AQA We Work With Experts.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I have loved this topic, and it's nice to actually talk about something that's English related. I know that won't necessarily apply to all of our listeners, but I'm hoping that it's still quite an interesting one. It would be nice to know from like our history colleagues and things like that how diverse they feel the curriculum is there as well, because I just think particularly with everything that's going on at the moment in our country, with the kind of the demonstrations with the flags and the protests that are taking place and things like that, where I think the idea of us talking about diversity is all the more important for us as not just for our young people, for all of us, for
and
all of us.
Studies as well, talking about learning about other perspectives and other experiences and
how to look for those as well, because sometimes you are only getting one version of events in the news.
Where I stand on the desk? Better not. That's my captain. I can't believe I just did that. How embarrassing. Hopefully that will get cut off into the show.
No, it was good. It's in keeping. Dead Poets Society. I love it. Thank you everybody so much for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed the topic. If you have any comments, get in touch with us. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with something new to talk about, and hopefully Rachel back with us too. Maybe a guest, who knows. Thanks so much everyone.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.